Hello everyone, welcome to Full Moon Movies. Winter Kills is one of those films that feels less like a story being told and more like a nervous breakdown committed to celluloid. Watching it today, decades after its release, the film plays like a paranoid echo from post Watergate America, a time when trust in institutions had collapsed. Truth felt fragmented, and the idea of a single coherent explanation for national trauma seemed almost laughable. Winter Kills, released in 1979, doesn't ask you to believe in one conspiracy, but it dares you to believe in all of them at once until belief itself becomes meaningless. The film begins with a murder that feels instantly familiar. A charismatic US president is assassinated, and the official story pins the crime on a lone gunman. But unlike films that try to carefully reconstruct an alternative version of events, Winter Kills takes a far stranger route. Jeff Bridges, played as Nick Keegan, is not a journalist or a trained investigator. He is an ordinary man whose only qualification is proximity. He happens to be the half brother of the slain president. His curiosity is personal rather than ideological, driven by lingering guilt and unresolved grief rather than a crusade for justice. Now, this choice is essential because it keeps the film from ever feeling authoritative. Nick is not uncovering truths so much as wandering into madness. As Nick begins asking questions, the film deliberately refuses to settle into a conventional thriller rhythm. Leads appear and disappear, witnesses contradict one another, information arrives too late, too early, or in forms that feels deliberately misleading. Instead of tightening the plot, each revelation causes it to unravel further. Isn't this like something we hear today? Now, this is not just a sloppy filmmaking, but it is the point. Winter Kills mirrors the psychological experience of conspiracy thinking itself, where every answer breeds 10 new questions and certainty becomes the most dangerous illusion of all. The film's tonal is where it becomes truly unsettling. Director William Richards blends political thriller, absurdist satire, and surreal comedy into something that feels constantly off balance. Scenes oscillate between deadly serious and bizarre humorous, often within the same exchange. Characters deliver expositional monologues that sound both profound and ridiculous. Assassins are discussed with the casual tone of office gossip. On the other hand, power brokers speak in riddles as if clarity itself would be a liability. The effect is destabilizing and intentionally so. The supporting cast is extraordinary, and their presence adds to the film's disorientation. John Huston appears to be a reclusive oil baron whose eccentric behavior borders on parody, yet his dialogue hints at the terrifying reach and influence. Sterling Hayden, with his weathered voice and haunted presence, feels like a man who has seen too much and chosen madness as a survival strategy. Anthony Perkins, Eli Wallach, and even brief experiences from unexpected faces turn the film into a kind of cinematic hall of mirrors, where authority figures blur into caricatures, and caricatures begins to feel more honest than official narratives. Jeff Bridges' performance anchors this chaos remarkably well. Nick Keegan is not a heroic figure, and the film never pretends otherwise. He's confused, increasingly overwhelmed, and often in over his head. In fact, Bridges plays him with a kind of affable vulnerability that makes his persistence believable. He doesn't outsmart the system, but he is battered by it. As the film progresses, his quest feels less like an investigation and more like an initiation into the uncomfortable realization that knowing too much may be worse than knowing nothing at all. One of the film's most striking qualities is its refusal to offer catharsis. Traditional conspiracy thrillers build towards revelation, a moment when the audience feels rewarded with clarity even if justice is denied. Winter Kills rejects this structure entirely. Instead of a single truth, the film presents overlapping, mutually exclusive explanations for the assassination. The CIA, the mafia, oil interests, military contractors, foreign governments, domestic extremists. Each theory is delivered with equal conviction and equal absurdity. By the end, the question is no longer who did it, but why do we need an answer so badly? Visually, the film reflects this fragmentation. The cinematography is clean but emotionally detached, often framing characters in a way that emphasizes isolations rather than connection. Rooms feel too large, conversations feel too exposed. The authority figures often appear diminished by their surroundings rather than empowered by them. In modern high resolution presentations, the film's visual plainness becomes an asset. There is no stylistic flourish to guide your emotions, no visual shorthand telling you what to believe. You are actually left alone with contradictions. The film's dialogue is perhaps its sharpest weapon. Characters speak in half truths and philosophical digressions that sound insightful until you realize they really explain nothing. Now, this linguistic fog reinforces the idea that power does not need to lie outright, it only needs to overwhelm. By giving people too many narratives, the system ensures paralysis rather than rebellion. Winter Kills understands these mechanisms with frightening clarity, and even so, more today. Now, upon its release in 1979, this film struggled commercially and critically largely because audiences didn't know how to process it. It arrived at a moment when America wanted answers, or at least coherent critics, not a film that laughed nervously at the very idea of coherence. Now, over time, however, Winter Kills has gained a cult reputation precisely because it refuses comfort. In a media landscape now saturated with algorithm-driven outrage, endless speculations, and competing truths, the film feels less dated and more prophetic. What makes Winter Kills resonate today is its central insight. Now, that conspiracy is not always a secret cabal pulling strings in perfect harmony. Sometimes it is the chaos masquerading as control, with everyone acting in self-interest, convinced they are the smartest person in the room. The film suggests that systems of power don't really need to be elegant to be effective. They just need to be confusing enough to exhaust those who question them. Just simple deception. Now, by the time the film reaches its conclusion, resolution feels almost irrelevant. The emotional impact comes not from what is revealed, but from what it is lost. The possibility of certainty, the comfort of belief, the idea that history can neatly be explained. Nick Keegan actually survives, but that survival here is not victory. It is the acceptance of ambiguity, a recognition that some truths may be structurally unreachable. In conclusion, Winter Kills is not an easy film, and it does not reward passive viewing. It challenges the audience to sit with discomfort, to question not just the institutions, but the human desire for narrative closure. Seen today, it stands as one of the most honest cinematic responses to political trauma, not because it offers answers, but because it exposes the psychological cost of chasing them. Now, this is a film that doesn't just depict paranoia, it understands it, inhabits it, and ultimately leaves you wondering whether clarity itself was ever the point. Now, this movie is a must-watch.